Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Sam and today's video is going to be my February wrap up. I believe I read, 16 books in the month of February. I had a really good month. I found my love for a new genre. I stepped outside of my comfort zone a little bit. I do have some surprising DNFs as well. So it was just kind of an all around good but also weird reading month for me. So the first book that I read in the month of February is The Royal Rogue by Karina Halley. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. This is set in the same world as A Nordic King, I think The Wild Heir. There's a few different books. I believe this is book 3 or 4, and we are actually following Princess Stella, who is the sister to the hero, the king of A Nordic King, so from that book. Now, Stella is, I believe she's 34, she's a single mom, and she's just not really in the royal spotlight anymore. And she actually meets Prince Orlando, who is Prince of, is it Madrid? No, Morocco? I don't know. It's one of the M's. So Stella and Orlando, they sort of start this friends with benefits kind of situation. They don't really want it to go any further because Stella knows you're not really the man for me. You are a playboy. You're also engaged to be married. And Orlando, he doesn't want to really have feelings for Stella because he is engaged and he feels an obligation to this woman who is such a good friend to him and has been there with him through a lot. But these two, despite not wanting to develop feelings for each other, they do. And then a pregnancy results from their time spent together, and they both don't really know what to do with this situation. Orlando does want to be a part of his child's life, but he's like, what is this going to do for my family, our image? What is it going to do for my fiance and our marriage? There's just a lot that could fall apart if these two decide to be together, and if word gets out that, hey, we're having a baby and we're not married and we're both royals. It's just a mess. So what I didn't really love about this book, though, is Orlando and some of the decisions that he had to make. It took him just too long to really figure out what the best thing to do was. And I felt like the reason why he was engaged to this woman, the circumstances surrounding that, wasn't really strong enough for me to be like, okay, I get it. I don't know. This one just didn't really hit for me like A Nordic King did. Still, I enjoyed it. If you want to read a romance about an older woman and surprise pregnancy, maybe try it out. Maybe you'll like it better than I did. And then the next book that I read, I'm not going to talk too much about it because I did just post an entire reading vlog where I talked about this book, and that is Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. It was a very good introduction for me into high fantasy, and I did really enjoy this. I enjoyed this way more than I thought that I would. We are following Gabriel, who learns that he is half vampire, and at the age of 15, he joins this brotherhood called the Silver Saints, and you're following him and his life and what has kind of led him to the point that we meet him at in this book. And I know that book 2 was just recently released, and I do want to pick that up. So yeah, overall, just really enjoyed this book. Very glad that I gave it a shot because I didn't think I would ever venture into the world that is high fantasy that's not Sarah J. Maas. And then I have a DNF, which is Scorned Vows by, I believe, Victoria Page. So in this book, we are following Natalia and Luca. This is a mafia arranged marriage, also a surprise pregnancy. I DNF'd this at 52%. I was really loving it. I wouldn't say really loving it. I was enjoying it up until that 50% mark. And Cheyenne, when she told me about this book, she did mention that this does have an amnesia trope in it. And it doesn't come into play until the 50% mark. And then after that trope came into play, because there's a huge time jump as well, I just really wasn't interested in it anymore. So I put it down. So the next book that I read is Bride by Allie Hazelwood. I was so excited for this book, okay? I have read one other Allie Hazelwood, and that is The Love Hypothesis. I gave that one 3 stars, but and it wasn't because I didn't enjoy her writing. That was really the thing that I enjoyed the most was her writing. It's just super easy to get into. I just didn't love the story. So when I found out that she was coming out with a paranormal arranged marriage romance, it's like, please sign me up. So in this book, we have Misery, who is a vampire, and then we have Lo, who is a werewolf. So in this world, the humans, the vampires, and the werewolves, they don't really get along. They're not very trusting of each other. And so in order to sort of create peace, they will send one person from like a very high up family in each species. So Misery has lived her life with the humans. So when the opportunity arises for Misery to go into the werewolf territory, she takes it. Now, this opportunity is she is going to marry the alpha wolf, Lo. Now, at the wedding ceremony, Lo has a very visceral reaction to Misery. Misery doesn't really know what's going on. She's like, why is he acting this way? Do I stink? What is happening? And Lo and Misery spend probably 20% of this book away from each other. Lo is really trying to fight his attraction to her. And Misery, she wanted to go to the werewolf territory because her friend, her dear friend who is a human she met in the human world, she lived with her, has gone missing. And the one clue that her friend left behind was some initials that she realized is something to do with the werewolves. So she is trying to find her friend while also living in werewolf territory, being a vampire, where everyone pretty much hates her. I gave this one 2 stars. I do not get the hype with this book. Like, I don't. When I saw everybody posting 4 and 5-star reviews, I'm like, did we read the same book? Because what was this? I think I was in denial when I was reading this book too. I'm like, it could get better. It could get better. Like, this isn't as bad as I'm thinking it is. No, this was really bad. Like I said, they spent the first 20% of this book like away from each other. And the whole reason why Misery is there to find her friend, I did not care about. We didn't get enough of their relationship, their friendship, to even care about her. And then Misery is supposed to be this very intelligent woman, and she does stupid things. And then the fact that she couldn't figure out that she was Lo's mate, come on, stop it. Just, I don't know. I feel like I did not enjoy this. This is really bad. Even the paranormal aspect of this book was bad. Just, no. And then I did a reread of A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. I had been craving that feeling that you get when you read one of her books since I finished House of Flame and Shadow. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to reread my all-time favorite book. So I did. And I loved every second of it. This book is just perfection. No one can ever tell me any different. I freaking love this book so much. So much. And the next book that I read is After the Storm by Laura Pavlov. I do not even know what number book this is in the series, but it is the Cottonwood Cove series. In this book, we are following Presley and Cage. This is a small town, second chance, single dad romance. Presley comes back into town because she needs to help her father, and she runs into Cage, and he has a daughter, and these two, they know that they shouldn't be together, but they can't fight that attraction that is still there between them. I just thought this was super cute. This is the first Laura Pavlov book that I have read, so if you have any recommendations on where I should go next, should I go back and read the first books in this series or maybe her newer work? I don't know, but I did really enjoy this. It's just kind of like a super comforting, sort of cozy small town. Yeah. So again, for this next book, I'm not going to go into too much detail because I did just post a vlog on it, and that is The Things We Cannot Say by Kelly Rimmer. This is a 5-star read, a new all-time favorite book, and because I read this book, it led me down a spiral, okay? I have read, you'll see soon, I've read so many historical fiction books because of this book. I loved it so freaking much. And thank you so much to everyone who has been leaving me recommendations on that vlog. I've been writing them down. I've been adding them to my Goodreads. I just need all the historical fiction that I can get my hands on right now. It's truly all I want to read. It is. So in this book, we are following Alina and Alice. Now, Alice is our present day POV, and she is a wife and a mother. Her son is on the spectrum, and she really revolves her life around him. She does what she can to make things easier for her entire family and for her son. And her husband is sort of absent in all of it, and so there's some strain between her and her husband. And then you have Alina, who is 1938 in Poland when the Nazis come and occupy Poland. And you get her and her family and the love of her life, Thomas. And you see how these two women's stories collide. And this is just an absolutely beautiful book. It broke me. This book broke me. But I loved it so much. I loved how it wrapped up, and the sacrifices that our characters made, the growth that our characters made. I am obsessed with this book. I love it so much. I still think about it. Ugh, it's just incredible. The next book that I read is Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is book 3 in the Brown's Sister series. We are following Eve, who is the youngest Brown sister. She's a bit of a hot mess. She doesn't really have a lot of responsibility. She's just kind of floated through life. She's just carefree, easygoing. And her parents have, they've decided, you need some responsibility, Eve. We're going to cut you off until you can prove that you can hold down a job for a year. Like, you need to be a grown-up, okay? Act your age. So she stumbles upon an Airbnb that Jacob owns, and Jacob is pretty desperate for a chef. And so despite how these two meet, which was pretty hilarious, he gives her a job. And so these two are working very closely together. There's really good banter. They have really good chemistry. I just loved that this book was super balanced in how funny it was and then the more emotional, like heavy topics that it covered. And their relationship was just adorable. So I gave this one 4 stars. Okay, and then going the complete opposite direction, I read The Maiden by Celia Aaron. I think that is her name. Is it Celia? I'm not sure. The picture will be here. This is book 1 in a trilogy. This is a captor-captive dark romance, religious cult romance. So we are following our heroine Delilah, and now that is not her actual name, and you find out the reason why. She goes and joins this cult that her sister went missing from. Well, her sister actually died from being in this cult, and so she decides, the only way I'm ever going to find out what truly happened to my sister is to join this cult myself. And so she catches the eye of the prophet's son, Adam. And now Adam is tasked with training her in kind of every sexual aspect that there is. I gave this one 3.5 stars. It really kept me on the edge of my seat, but this was very hard to read at times just because of the things that they put these girls through. This is dark, okay? It's dark. It goes there. It is definitely not afraid to go there. And it did end on a cliffhanger, and I want to read book 2. So, if that tells you anything, I did enjoy this. It's just, it was wild. Sorry if the angle has changed. I had a little freak out moment thinking that my camera was not recording, so I had to check. We're good though. Okay, so the next book that I read is another World War II historical fiction. This is Lilac Girls by Martha Hall Kelly. Now, this book is inspired by real events and real people during World War II. So we are following 3 different perspectives in this book. We have Caroline, who is an American. She is a former actress. She is from a very wealthy family, a very high family in society, but she has dedicated her life to helping French orphans because of the war. I believe she lives in New York, and so she tries to, bring refugees in, and she also sends like care packages out to kids who are in need. And then we have Cassia, who is a Polish teenager. I believe she's a teenager, or like early 20s when this book first starts out. Who she gets herself mixed up in the rebellion and then gets sent to Ravensbrück. And then we have Herta, who is a German doctor who takes a position at the Ravensbrück concentration camp. So you see pretty early on how Cassia and Herta's stories collide, how they come to know each other. Because at the Ravensbrück concentration camp, it is an all-female concentration camp, and they did the Rosenthal medical experiments there, where they took a number of women and inserted different things into their legs, like shrapnel, dirt, things like that, just to see how it would react. They also did it to some males, but this one just specifically follows the Ravensbrück and I think they were called the Ravensbrück rabbits, the women who were actually, like, the experiment was done on. And so you follow Cassia and her sister, who was actually taken to this concentration camp with her, as they try to survive, and then as they go through these horrific medical experiments. And then Herta, being in her point of view, was wild because she truly thought that what she was doing was right. Then you get Caroline, who at first you don't really know why her story is important and how these 3 ladies are going to sort of come into contact with each other, and you do find that out. I don't want to go into too much detail about how Caroline does run across these other 2 women, because I don't want to give, any spoilers. But I really liked how things wrapped up in this book. You do get a lot of closure, and which I found kind of surprising. And I found the very end of this book, what happens between 2 characters, that interaction had to be hard. And now I don't know if that actually happened. It probably didn't, but I just cannot imagine facing someone who had done that and then walking away. And just, I don't know. This was hard to read. It was very hard to read. I gave this a 4-star because at the beginning I really didn't love Caroline's POV, and there's like a really weird romance that goes on with Caroline and someone else, and I grew to love it, and I grew to appreciate her story more, especially the later we got in the book. But at the very beginning I was like, oh, I don't know that I like you. Like, not you specifically, but your perspective. I was just a little confused as to why she was in here, but it all comes together. It all makes sense. This one, definitely, I liked that it is inspired by real people and real events. It was very eye-opening because that is something that I had no idea about. I had never heard about the Ravensbrück concentration camp or the Ravensbrück rabbits, anything like that. So this book actually taught me something. So next up, I have yet another World War II historical fiction. I read The Nighting Gale by Kristen Hanna. This is a 5-star read. If you don't like this book, try again, because you're wrong. This book was so freaking good. I cried so many times throughout this book, but especially the end. The end, oh my gosh. I love this book. So we are following 2 sisters, Vienne and Isabel. Now, Vienne is living in a very small village with her husband and her daughter. Her husband actually gets called off to war to fight for France. And then you have Isabel, who is 18 years old, and she is very rebellious. She is in Paris with their father when the Germans come and start bombing France. So her father sends her, go to your sister, you'll be safe there. Get out of Paris, go. And along the way, she meets a man who is part of the resistance. Isabel immediately wants to go with him. She wants to do more, but she makes it to her sister. She ends up staying with her sister for a little bit, while her sister has to host a Nazi soldier into their home. So things just get a little tense and very awkward because Isabel she has to bite her tongue with this captain who is staying in their house. And Vienne is very much just trying to keep her head down and, not really make a fuss. She wants to go to work. She wants to take care of her daughter, and she's waiting for her husband to get back. And she's also like sort of walking on eggshells because she doesn't know what her sister is going to say to this captain. Is she going to make things worse for me and my daughter? And she starts to see that there is more to this captain than him just being, a Nazi in their town. And she knows that they are doing bad things, but he has treated her with nothing but respect, and she learns about him and his life. And so she kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say she relaxes into her life, but he helps her. He brings them food, and he tries to make things easier and more comfortable for her and her daughter. I actually really liked Vienne's POV. I feel like most people, when they read this, they're really going to like Isabel, because Isabel she runs away. She goes and joins the resistance, and she is doing her part. Her points of view in here, they are very much like high stakes. She is fearless, very fearless. And I really enjoyed that and respected that about her character, especially her being so young. She has her whole life ahead of her. And then Vienne her perspective it gives you what daily life would be like for these people. And as a mother, what would you do to protect your kid? I don't know, I just found that super fascinating. And so I really loved this story. I loved how these sisters who haven't really had the best relationship, how they come out of this and they are stronger, and they really realize how much they love each other and how much they've always loved each other, and what they're willing to sacrifice for each other. It's just beautiful. This was a beautiful book, and I regret not reading this sooner. So the next book that I read is book 3 in the Kingdom of Lies series by Stasia Stark, and that is A Crown This Cold and Heavy. This, I can't really go into too much detail about. I'm teetering between a 3.5 and a 4-star rating for this book. I did enjoy it more than book 2, but there's still just something kind of missing that I loved about the first book, and I just can't put my finger on it. Like, I'm still really having fun with this series, but I don't know. And this one did, again, end on a pretty major cliffhanger, so is book 4 out already? I don't think it is, but when book 4 comes out, I'm definitely going to be picking it up. The next book that I have, I am very shocked and very disappointed that I DNF'd this. I got like 250 pages in. You can still see my bookmark. I was so hyped for this book. I was so ready for this book. This is book 5 in the Magnolia Parks universe, book 3 following Magnolia and BJ, and this is wrapping up their story. Now, if you've read this series and you know what happened in The Long Way Home, and then what happened in The Great Undoing, like, I needed this book, okay? I wanted this book so badly, but I just didn't care. I did not care, and I know that this series is kind of plotless, but in this book, it just really felt like there was no plot. Like, what was going on in this book? And then Magnolia was insufferable. Like, very much like, I cannot stand you right now. And I didn't have that issue in her previous books, so I don't know. Maybe I just need to wait a little bit and then pick it up, but yeah, I had to I had to put it down, and I am devastated. And then I read a psychological thriller, The Quiet Tenant by Clements McCallan, I think. I listened to the audiobook and it said the name and it's just gone out of my head, the correct pronunciation. But in this book, this is a fairly short book. I think it's like 300 pages, and we are following a serial killer through the perspective of his girlfriend, his daughter, and the victim that he has spared. Now, you do get his other victims kind of thrown in here as well. I believe there was 8 or 9 of them, where you just get like a very brief, like kind of what happened. This book was kind of a trip to read because you're seeing this very sort of normal guy through the eyes of his daughter and through his girlfriend. He's very much like loved in the town, very respected in the town, which, you know, a lot of serial killers, they're just normal people. But it was just really weird to read about, especially the girlfriend's POV, where she's just very attracted to him, but then she starts like noticing little things are off about him. She gets very kind of like self-conscious about it. And then when she kind of meets the victim in here, she's jealous of her. And then seeing the POV of his daughter, she's a teenager. She's pretty young, and just how protective he is over her, and how she loves her dad, but she also notices that there's something different about him as well. And then the way that the victim, she sort of gets in his mind and convinces him to do things that he normally wouldn't with his victims, and the way that she starts to notice him slipping up and then she really takes advantage of it. This was really good. I've never really read anything like this before, so yeah, I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 stars. So the next book is another DNF, and I do talk about this in my vlog that I have mentioned so many times already in this video, but go and watch it if you haven't. I DNF'd Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I DNF'd this at chapter 15. I just did not care. This is a sci-fi book, and I was really disappointed too, because I wanted to love this book. I wanted to be in on the hype, but I don't want to completely cross out sci-fi, but this one just was not for me. There was too much science, too much math. I did not care. I truly did not care. And then the last book that I read in February is Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I finally read this book. I gave this 4 stars. So we are following Yasmin and Josiah. This is a second chance romance between a previously married couple. They were married for quite a few years. They have 2 children together, and they have been co-parenting, running a restaurant together. And so we're following them as they are finding love again within each other, as, you know, they are dealing with a very great loss, lots of grief, and how that can change a person and how they heal together. And this truly was a beautiful book. And you're probably wondering, Sam, why did you give it 4 stars then? And this is gonna be so nitpicky, and I'm sorry. The daughter drove me nuts. Okay, she blames Yasmin for the divorce between her and her dad, and the way she treated her mother really grated on my nerves. She was a brat, and I'm like, you cannot be treating your mother that way. It really just took me out of the story, and I'm like, I want to strangle you. Like, you're a child, I know, and you're going through some things, and like, you have every right, but don't treat your mom that way. Do not treat your mom that way. And she just, ooh. So I couldn't get past her. I could not get past her. But yeah, finally, I've read this book, and it is a very good book, and I highly recommend it. Again, it's a me thing. I could not get past the daughter, but I did really enjoy this book. So those are all of the books that I read in the month of February. If you have made it to this point in the video and you'd like to let me know, leave me a purple heart in the comments down below. Also, let me know what your favorite book of February was. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.